Oh,
WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts, along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
howdy, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good night to our video watchers and to the audio people. Once again, another howdy. Now, this is another episode inside of Author's Circle, but this one is going to take us on a different journey. Um, I'm going to relate this to the fantasy I grew up with. I grew up with Final Fantasy, which is a video game. But then I'm going to take it another arc, and I'm going to talk about real quick about something that was the earliest story that was given to me. It was a story called Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, and in that story, it told about a mongoose, and it told about a cobra, and it told also about a young man and his family and how they were saved. Inside this, there were these three topics. There was an identity topic, there was trauma, and then there was healing. Now, inside this, it was very simple. You can go watch this. There's a cartoon that was animated by Chuck Jones if you need to hear about that. But it had those three underlying topics. And our author that is on here with us today, I believe these three topics would resonate very well with her. And her name is Tricia Copeland. Now, Trisha, before you take the stage and you talk to us, could you please give us a little bit about your background and what brought you into the realm of writing fantasy and dystopian romance? Like, because that's a stretch across genres.
It is. My first series I wrote sort of cathartically. I wasn't really sure that I was even going to do anything with it. But as a young adult, I was anorexic. And when I was older, like 20 years after that, I was looking back at my life and just thinking about the different experiences and really wanted to share that experience with the world and share like what it felt like to be in that disease and how it looked to recover from that disease. Um, it's not a very common thing. So I feel like people that may be experiencing that could benefit from hearing my story. So that's the first book that I wrote, and I write a fictionalized version of my experience. And that became a four-book series. It's called the Being Me series, and it follows a girl of college age who becomes anorexic and her experience and her experience with recovery. So that's how I got into writing. And then I realized I really liked writing. So very quickly, I jumped over to fantasy writing, which is fantasy is my favorite genre. So I set out to write a vampire series, which didn't happen yet, but which is fairies and vampires, some vampires in there, but not primarily. So I have jumped into that and just love fantasy writing.
Okay. Now, going back to this first series that you wrote, when you finished the series, did you look at yourself different in the mirror? Or was it more or less that this was something, it was a healing process that you got from this? And you didn't have to look in the mirror again because you knew who you were.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was 20 years after my experience with recovery from anorexia. So definitely a more mature person. But also, having pushed, the publish button, now I'm a public figure. So I definitely did look at myself as an author and a little more, I guess you feel a little more raw and exposed after publishing something so personal, but also really proud of myself that I was willing to just put myself out there and say, this is me, this is my truth, this is what happened, and this is who I am. So.
Okay, okay. Now, perspective. That's something you write about in your novels. You write from a first person perspective, correct?
I do. Most of my books are, yes.
Now, what made you decide to do that? And what kind of feeling do you think it brings out about your characters that can't be described in third person?
Yeah, I think. I began writing that way because I was writing my own story. So it was very comfortable and I knew who I was, right? And how I would react to things. But I just kept writing that way because I think it just gives you a more intimate view of, someone's thoughts, feelings, and that like you're in the driver's seat in whatever's action is happening in the story, as opposed to like you're not in the passenger seat watching the driver. You are the driver basically in that story.
And does this help make stronger character arcs for the characters that interact with you? Because basically, it's almost like you would eat, sleep, and breathe being that character, correct?
It is, yes. And when I'm writing a book, I am constantly, if I'm washing my clothes, I'm thinking about like how my character would be feeling, how they would be reacting, if I got it right in the last scene I wrote, or and where would they go from, where are they going next, and what are they doing, how are they reacting? So I am constantly in the head of my characters, and they become very personal to me.
Okay. And in doing this, do you sometimes get so immersed in it that certain things from these characters play out in real life?
Do they play out in real life? Well, I wish I could fly like a fairy. That would be great. But I mean, definitely, I had a very personal loss for my fairy in one of the books, and I had a personal loss myself that year. So I think, sometimes it helps to heal a little bit to write something for a character that you've experienced. And I think you can maybe get more depth of emotion for that character if you've personally experienced it.
Okay. So resonating works there. Now, the Realm Chronicle. Tell us about this series and tell us about this last book that you put out and tell us about a moment inside this book that would lock people or in this series that would lock people into the series.
Right. So the Realm Chronicles is now a 5 book series. It's a complete series, which I'm super excited about that. The finale to be a Fae came out just last week. So, or I guess August of 2025, since this will be released later. But so it starts with a young Fae princess. She's 15 years old and she had 4 older brothers, but they were slain in a battle several years in the past, when the story starts. And there's another invasion of the same group of enemies. And her father has very much sheltered her, but she is also thinking, and has studied and trained, thinking that she will be the next monarch of her kingdom. And she figures out how to stop these invaders, and her father realizes that she's probably capable now. She can do it. And so he decides he's, tired, old, not doesn't want to do this anymore, and gives her the crown. Well, the problem is that she's 15 and she's the first female monarch ever in their realm. So even like some of her father's trusted advisors aren't sure whether they want her to lead, or they aren't sure whether she can lead. So she has to prove herself to them, as well as stopping these invaders who are trying to take over their kingdom and their realm.
Whoa.
That
So
launches the series, and um, yeah. um,
that was amazing. So let me ask you this. Is there any thought of ever turning this into a screenplay, maybe?
Oh, I would love it. I would, would be so fun to see like either a series or a movie feature. I took a screenwriting class this year, which is something new for me, and I adapted another series, the first book in another series, and I still haven't done anything with that yet. It's still on my shelf, so I'm thinking about it.
Because I would say with 5 books in a series, that right there, Um, after a little bit of development, you could shop it over to anywhere. Now, let me ask you this because we're just in a fantasy world right now, even though your book's in a fantasy world. Um, would it would it take away from it if it was done in animation?
I don't think so. No, it could be either way, because the realm of the Fae in my book, even though it's a contemporary story, so it's set like now contemporary human time, the Fae live under our bedrock. So if you think about if you cut a hole through our our bedrock and went through the hole, that would be the Fey realm, like these caverns that would be under our world. So, in they don't have our same technology. They decided not to use computers, electricity, telephones, or any of those things. So it's very much, sort of a medieval feel to it. So definitely animation would lend itself well to that, I think.
And I could see that. And it almost like when you said that bedrock, I thought about an old show, Fraggle Rock, for some reason. Because they were under the ground
All
and
right, yeah.
underneath the bedrock. Now, um, in building this up, you build up a folklore for it. How does it feel to know that you built up your own folklore from the Fae lore?
Yeah, so it was funny because when I first wrote this, I hadn't read a lot of Fae literature. I mean, I knew like Midnight Summer, one, Shakespeare's fairies, a little bit about them, but not, I don't think I'd read the whole or watched the whole thing all the way through. So I didn't do that much research. So my fairies are a little bit different. Like most fairies, a lot of Fae don't or fairies don't have wings. My fairies do. They can fly. A lot of fairies are depicted as not being able to lie. So being very deceitful while not lying, right? My fairies usually don't lie and usually have upstanding moral characteristics, but they can, right? And also, my fairies aren't susceptible to iron, which is one of the common things sometimes about fae or fairies. So I didn't follow any of them, and maybe because I really didn't know about them. So I haven't gotten many people mad about that. Nobody's come back and said, "Oh, you shouldn't have done this." So yeah, it is fun to kind of, and I think every author wants to carve out their own little spin on whatever fantasy is out there.
Okay. Now, inside this volume of books, who is your favorite character inside these books?
Oh, it has to be Queen Titania. I mean, who else could it be? I mean, she's this young queen who's in the beginning still very headstrong and a little flighty. So she does make some missteps in the beginning just because she is that a little bit of a rebellious teen in the beginning and kind of has to learn when to use that and when to hold off and be a little more diplomatic. And she kind of turns her realm on its end. She's decided that the way people have been doing things or the way her fae have been doing things for thousands of years, maybe are not the way they should be done now. So it definitely changes the path for the fae, would say.
Okay. Now, two recurring themes center around one thing: self-esteem, body image, and self-worth. Through your experiences, you've shaped your characters and your story, but initially, after you published your first book, how did those themes stick with you
How do they stick with me? Well,
after
I
your
mean,
first book?
right after so I think that, all of those things have been big for me. Like I never felt like I was like great or good enough, or I always feel like there's something that I need to improve. And I think there can be some balance to that, right? Like my writing has definitely improved over the course of my books. I feel like I've learned a lot more about story, characters, plot, all of those things. But being able to look back and say, yes, I did achieve that, and that was good. And I can do more. Not, and I like that and more than I like, saying, but you could do more. And I could do more, which kind of puts that opportunity spin on it instead of, oh, you didn't do this as good as you could have. So I try to stay in that positive space rather than looking back and saying what wasn't good enough, right?
Okay. Now, the next set of questions that I'm going to ask you are going to help out aspiring authors or someone that wants to be an author that just hasn't picked up that pen or typing, whichever way they want to do it. Now, you yourself took a situation or a trauma and it became your first book. From the first book, from that, you went on to fantasy because you were aligned. You had a controlled method to your mayhem. So, what would you tell someone that's trying to rationalize or basically make a check and balance system like you did for yourself while you were writing your first book? How would you tell them to go about that?
I think just sitting down and writing. I mean, if you're a big planner and you like outlines, then make an outline first. But for me, it's just sitting down and writing. And I still have to kind of force myself or remind myself that's what I need to do. Because I think when you just start, you're going to keep going. Like if you say, okay, I'm going to do it for 15 minutes a day, you'll probably end up writing for 30 minutes or an hour or however long you have time for. Because and just getting in there and doing it and letting the story take you where it goes, like letting your creativity guide the story. And you can come back and fix, plot. You can come back and fix characters. You can come back and fix whatever needs to be fixed, right? And even I will get in lulls that I just have to remind myself, oh, just write something. And then, I think you just get more momentum and you get more excitement and just as you keep going with it.
Okay. Now, an important thing that you have to do whenever you're doing any type of content creation is self-care. And the thing about being an author, people love your work and everything, but they never truly ask how you take care of yourself after you're done writing these books. Anybody can ask you, sorry about that with the mic. Um, Anybody can ask, oh, what's it like to write during the process or whatever, but what happens to you after you're done? Now, I understand you have ideas that go into something else, but when you have a completed product, what type of self-care do you do for yourself before the promotion and all that other stuff? And everybody knows the writer process is getting it edited and sending in the rough draft and all that other stuff. But what do you do at the end of everything when it's time to close the door before you start the whole marketing thing, which is coming on podcasts and all that stuff? What type of self care do you do for yourself then?
Yeah, it's pretty emotional because right when I finished, and kind of typed the end, it felt very good because I was giving my characters like their happily ever after, and they didn't have to go through any more trauma because my characters do get put through a lot of trauma. Um, and it was funny because right at the beginning, I was, very relieved and excited for everybody to be able to read it. And now I'm 6 months out from finishing it, and I'm thinking, I miss these characters. I want them back. So yeah, you kind of have to do that emotional stepping around. These are friends who, you have to kind of put on the shelf and go, make some new friends um, to, kind of occupy your imagination.
Okay. Now, one thing that's nostalgic to this show, we do this thing called the shameless plug. So, what I need you to do for me right now, Trisha, is can you please give us a shameless plug where you plug where we can meet and greet you across the internet and where everybody can find the books?
Right. So my website is Tricia Copeland, TriciaCopeland.com. So if you go to the website, you can get 2 free short stories, 1 free short fantasy that's features Titania, and a free romance. If you like to read romance, I write that as well. So if you sign up for my newsletter, you can get those 2 free short stories that you can read and see if you like my work. If you head on over to YouTube, I have tons of content from other authors as well as my own books. So that's always fun.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, where to get my books? You can get my books. If you go to my website, there's links to all my books, but you can get them on Amazon, Kindle, Kindle Unlimited. 2 of my series are on audiobooks. So that's a lot of fun too.
All right. And one thing that she failed to mention to you all is once you buy her book, take the ISBN from that book to the state capitol library in your respective state if you're in the United States and have them order that book so that that book will be sent to every county in your state. That's a way that a author's work is immortalized. It's a little simple thing, audience, that we all learned in school, but that's the one thing we forgot because that one time went to library for the first time, they taught us that and we've all let it go. So remember to do that also so that her work is immortalized. I want you to buy it first, take the ISBN to your local library, I mean to your state library and do that so her work can be immortalized in your state. And I don't know how they do it in Canada or other places, but there should be a way to make the book widespread. And remember, an author's journey in creating a material such as a book or even just a prose or anything is hard work and has certain level of integrity to it that gets spoken when you read the whole thing thoroughly through and you can just see like parts of her inside the book after you watch this. So thank you for that portion there. Now, you've written under a name Maria Jane, correct?
Right. Yes. 2 of my romances are under Maria Jean.
All right. And are there any crossovers or Easter eggs between the worlds?
No, the romance is contemporary romance, and it's set in a normal world. So there aren't any fairies or vampire or any real fairies or vampires. They may read fantasy and about the fairies and vampires, but no. So it's two separate series.
Okay. Now, what I would like to do, Miss Copeland, is before we jump off here, I'd like you to do this for me. And these are some questions that I ask people. They're based off of a news magazine that I watched growing up. And the show's called 2020. On 2020, you had a lady, Barbara Walters, one of the greatest interviewers that ever lived. You had Diane Sawyer and you had Elizabeth Vargas and a few other people, but you had John Stossel on there. And John Stossel was the comedic relief on there. When he did something, you knew that it was funny. So, are you ready for your 2020 questions?
I'm ready.
All right. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do?
I get my dog off my bed.
Okay. And then after that, what is the first form of information that you put in your body?
I always look at my email and the New York Times headlines.
Okay. Now, here's the next question. What type of pollution do you put in your body first thing in the morning?
Diet Coke.
Okay.
I'm sorry I do that. Yes.
Okay. So you got Diet Coke. I'm diabetic, so I'm Coke Zero, so I understand. Now, midway through your day, you've already cycled through what you have to go through, those emails, just like everyone else. They navigate our day. If something comes in positive, my day is going to be a little bit better. But if something comes in that I have to take care of that gives me a new task for the end of my day or somewhere in my day. So for you, what is the middle of the day like for you?
What is the middle of the day like? Yeah, I usually break mine sort of like maybe most people do. I break for lunch, let my dog out, and then come back and look at my new emails again. I try to get up from my computer at least 5 minutes every hour, so my body's not too too tight and too sore when I get up. But yeah, just I guess checking back in with my email and then trying to focus on blocking out um, external things
Hindrances or,
that
yeah.
hindrances that get in my way of focusing.
Okay. Now, here's the next question. The glass, is it half full or half empty?
It's definitely half full. Yes.
Okay. For you?
For me, yes.
And why
I
is
have to
that?
work on that though. I think it's been a process of making it half full rather than half empty. Yeah.
Okay. I had someone that was real interesting, and I'd never heard this. He said the glass is always full, and I was like, "Whoa, no, my glass gets half empty. I got some boundaries in life. It's not going to stay full the whole time. I got to rest." So I thank you for your answer. His answer was kind of wild. No disrespect to him. Now, you've written your books. Everyone's has a dream, so you've done part of your dream. What's the next part of your dream?
Yeah, I'm looking for my next fantasy series. So I have a couple of characters that came up in the finale to the Realm Chronicles that I'm looking at, making another crossover series. So I'm looking at a couple of those. I've got a couple of ideas. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Okay. Now, inside of any type of content creation or writing a book, painting or anything, there has to be a heartbreak. And the reason I say there has to be a heartbreak is because a lot of people pull from the whole idea of a phoenix rising. So what beyond the anorexia that you told us about, what was your heartbreak inside of writing?
Like, what was my lowest moment in writing my
Yes,
books?
ma'am. What was like? Because when you have a heartbreak, it's something that sticks with you. You heal
Right.
from it, but you always hold on to it.
Right. And probably sometimes I tend to I always read my reviews, but I tend to remember the negative reviews more than the positive reviews, unfortunately. So sometimes there's been one review that just like, oh, you didn't get it at all. And I wanted you to get, I wanted you to get it. And not every book is everybody's perfect fit. I get that. But yeah, it's hard to like keep those negative reviews in the back of my mind.
But you're doing something now to take care of it, right? Or
Yeah, well, sometimes, yeah, sometimes it is constructive criticism that can make your books better, definitely. But sometimes it's just like, okay, this wasn't the right book for this person.
okay, it's trolls basically on in some certain instances. Okay, and I got you there. Now, your last question. If you could have lunch with any of your characters, who would you have lunch with?
Hmm, that's a hard one. I might have lunch probably with my antagonist because I really want to figure out why, just why. So
Okay.
I would need to ask them why because I haven't written their backstory yet. So
Okay.
that's on
So,
my to-do list. I'm gonna say that. Yes.
all right. So, Tricia Copeland, before we jump off here, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to leave us with two mission statements. One mission statement, if you don't mind doing this one on the fly, is an author's mission statement. Like, help authors real quick. And then I need your mission statement for your book series and for what's going to go on for the progression of your writing arc.
Right. So I guess a mission for authors or writers is to write at least 15 minutes every day. That would be a mission or a goal. Okay. My mission statement is probably the same right now. I just keep writing and deadlines. Deadlines are good for me. Like if I give myself deadlines, then I'm more likely to do that every day to work towards it. So that's my mission for myself today.
Okay. And one more time, can you plug where people can meet and greet you across the internet and where a prescribed method where you want them to grab your books from?
Right. So my website is triciacopeland.com, and Amazon or anywhere you buy paperback books is a great place to grab either an ebook, a paperback, or an audiobook.
All right, and I thank you for that. So on that note, I am JR and she is Tricia Copeland. She has an amazing world that is immersed in her Realm Chronicles. Make sure you go check that out. And in the show notes, the greatest thing about a podcast, that's the after portion of a podcast. You'll be able to read, you'll find links to all of this material. And one last time, I want to thank you one more time for coming on, Miss Copeland. And I hope that the future brings you way more than what you got right now. And I hope that this develops into something that we can watch on TV because I love reading, but with fantasy and things like that, when you can visually see it without closing your eyes, and it's great with a book, you can do that too, but seeing it somewhere would be amazing. And I hope that comes to fruition for you. And I hope you're going to get that screenplay written by next year.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, JR.
All right. And we are out of here.